The concept of the soul's erosion is not a religious idea. It is a profound psychological reality that every ambitious person must confront. It is the slow, insidious decay of purpose, driven not by external failure, but by the relentless pursuit of immediate, cheap pleasure, the very definition of the shadow of desire. Our primal drives are meant to fuel our life's grandest creations, yet in the modern world, they are constantly hijacked by a system designed to monetize instant gratification. We confuse the fleeting relief of pleasure with the profound satisfaction of fulfillment. This practice of energy conservation, often discussed under the term semen retention, is thus redefined. It is not a sacrifice. It is an act of radical self-preservation. It is the conscious decision to withhold the most potent, generative force within you from the consumption loop, ensuring that your vital energy remains within the core, fortifying the very drive that defines your existence. When you submit to every momentary urge, you are giving away a piece of your intentionality, allowing the shadow to subtly chip away at the foundation of your future self, leaving you distracted, listless, and perpetually behind the person you know you are meant to be. This is the true erosion, the loss of the fiery resolve necessary to build a meaningful life. The true work, then, is transmutation, the alchemical process of turning base metal into gold. The energy generated by primal desire is not destroyed, it is redirected and elevated. When you resist the path of least resistance, that latent biological energy which is intense, focused, and demanding is forced to seek a higher, more constructive outlet. This energy, previously a source of distraction and time waste, becomes the sustained fuel for your most demanding and complex goals. Imagine a river dammed. The pressure builds, and that pressure is then channeled to turn turbines and power a city. Your own energy works the same way. The discipline of withholding creates internal pressure, which is then forced into productive channels. Deep work on a difficult project, intense physical training, rigorous study, or focused creative output. This is the essence of iron will, a refusal to negotiate with your lower self, using the strength of your desire to push you towards your purpose, rather than pull you away from it. The goal is to make your greatest creative output, the highest form of that primal expression. The protective consequence of this discipline is the establishment of an inner throne, fortified, unshakable center of gravity. Most people operate from a place of external dependency, where their mood, focus, and sense of self are dictated by their environment, likes, notifications, passing compliments, or minor setbacks. The discipline required to master one's most fundamental drives breaks this dependency. By proving to yourself that you are in command of the powerful forces within, you gain a sense of self-sovereignty. This internal fortitude shields your drive from the two greatest forms of external drain: the constant lure of digital distraction and the subtle energy-zapping anxiety that comes from seeking external validation. You no longer chase the next dopamine hit, because you are building something permanent and profound inside. This unwavering inner calm and self-reliance is felt by everyone around you. It is the non-verbal signature of a person who is complete within themselves, a magnetic presence that no momentary pleasure can ever replicate or replace. To fortify this inner throne, you must cultivate radical self-awareness. The shadow of desire cannot be beaten if it is not named. You must meticulously identify the specific leaks in your personal energy system, but precise times, places, people, and triggers that consistently draw you off course. This requires journaling, ruthless self-inquiry, and a commitment to observing your own patterns without judgment, only with a desire for correction. For one person, the leak might be excessive social media scrolling. For another, it might be the passive consumption of news or entertainment. For the purpose of this discussion, the specific practice acts as a constant, high-stakes barometer for self-control, highlighting every single weakness in your overall discipline. By successfully addressing this one high-voltage area, the spillover effect is immediate. Your discipline strengthens across your entire life, making it exponentially easier to control your spending, your diet, your sleep schedule, and your overall productivity. Ultimately, protecting your drive from the shadow of desire is the only path to a life of authentic fulfillment. It separates the perpetually passive from the perpetually purposeful. The goal is not to live a life of ascetic denial, but to live a life of maximum output, a life where your choices are dictated by your highest values, not your lowest impulses. This commitment transforms your energy into gold. You experience heightened mental acuity, a powerful surge in creative thought, and an unparalleled sense of personal momentum. The erosion of the soul is reversed, replaced by the feeling of building an internal empire life of integrity, power, and deep, unshakable satisfaction, proving that the greatest act of creation is the creation of a disciplined self. In every era of human civilization, the greatest battle has never been fought on open fields. It has been fought within the silent chambers of the mind. The war between impulse and intention, between momentary pleasure and eternal purpose. The ancients understood this battle not as a moral struggle but as a spiritual science. The art of governing the inner currents of energy that define vitality, will, and consciousness itself. They spoke of life force, of prana, ki ojas, or creative essence names for the same subtle power that animates man. In that context, semen retention was not repression. It was the deliberate choice to protect one's sacred fire from the winds of distraction. Today, the battlefield has changed, but the enemy remains the same desire in its fragmented, overstimulated modern form. The shadow of desire, as one might call it, no longer hides in myth or seduction. It now lives in algorithms, endless notifications, neon screens that glow brighter than the stars. It whispers through the feed, promising connection while draining attention. It offers pleasure but demands presence in return. And so, the modern soul, bombarded with choice, begins to erode not through sin, but through subtle, invisible leaks of energy. The warrior of the modern world doesn't carry a sword. He carries awareness. His armor is focus. His fortress is discipline. And his weapon is the ability to say no to, not be conquered by the endless chase for stimulation. Because every moment lost to unconscious indulgence, every hour spent feeding the shadow, is a piece of the soul, eroded, a fragment of the will dissolved into the noise. Desire is not the enemy. The ancients never said to kill it, they said to master it. Because desire, in its pure form, is divine. It's the same force that drives creation, art, innovation, and evolution. But when unguarded, it becomes an undertow, pulling the spirit downward into dependency. Modern neuroscience confirms what mystics already knew. The brain, when repeatedly overstimulated, begins to numb itself. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation, becomes a chain rather than a key. Pleasure turns into exhaustion. Curiosity turns into craving. The individual begins to chase shadows of satisfaction, forgetting that fulfillment is not in the act but in the alignment. This is the erosion of the soul, not in a moral sense, but in an energetic one. The masculine fire, once meant to create, begins to burn itself out through excess. In ancient Egypt, the Ki and Ba, the spiritual doubles of man, were said to weaken when he lived without discipline, when he squandered his vital essence. In Taoist inner alchemy, the retention and refinement of sexual energy was seen as the foundation for spiritual awakening because it trained the body to conserve electricity instead of wasting it in sparks. Today, that electricity is dissipated through constant dopamine cycles, digital temptation, casual indulgence, emotional overexposure. To protect the drive from the shadow of desire is not to become cold or detached, but to become conscious. It is to hold fire in your hands and not burn yourself with it. It is to walk into the storm of stimuli and not lose your direction. Retention, therefore, becomes a metaphor for sovereignty, the capacity to contain energy long enough for it to transform from instinct into insight. When you hold your energy, it begins to refine you. The restless energy that once sought release turns into clarity, resilience, and charisma. You no longer seek validation because you have become your own source of radiance. The erosion of the soul begins subtly, like water carving stone. It starts with a compromise here, a distraction there, a late-night scroll, a brief indulgence, a loss of focus that seems harmless. But energy flows where attention goes, and what you repeatedly feed grows roots in the subconscious. Desire, unchecked, becomes addiction. Addiction, left unchallenged, becomes identity. The man who once ruled his impulses becomes ruled by them. He wonders why his motivation fades, why his purpose feels diluted, why his days seem heavy with invisible fatigue. It is because the energy meant for creation is being siphoned by the machinery of consumption. Every image, every indulgence, every false pleasure is a tax on the soul. And yet, there is a way back. It begins with awareness, the simple act of watching the mind without judgment. When you see desire rise like a tide, you no longer have to drown in it. You can ride it, observe it, redirect it. This is the essence of transmutation, the art of turning craving into creativity, restlessness into resolve. In the language of the Upanishads, this is tapas, the inner heat that refines the soul through self-control. In modern terms, it's neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire through repetition and focus. Each time you resist the pull of the shadow, your neural pathways strengthen toward mastery. Over weeks and months, a man begins to glow differently. His eyes sharpen, his voice deepens, his posture steadies. He begins to radiate coherence, the inner harmony that comes from living in alignment with his highest energy. The same energy that once pulled him outward now builds him inward. Desire ceases to erode him, it begins to sculpt him. The shadow loses its grip because he no longer fears it, he has integrated it. And so, the practice of semen retention in the modern world is not about denial, it is about design. To live with awareness of one's energetic economy in an age of distraction is to walk as a conscious creator among consumers. The shadow of desire will always exist, because life itself is polarity, creation and destruction, ascension and descent. But erosion becomes evolution when awareness enters the process. The man who learns to protect his drive understands that his energy is not merely biological, it is spiritual currency. Every drop of will he retains, every moment of temptation he transcends, becomes fuel for his higher calling. He becomes less reactive, more intentional. less fragmented, more whole. He begins to create rather than consume, to love without losing himself, to pursue without becoming enslaved by pursuit. This is the rebirth of drive, the restoration of sacred focus. The ancients called it the fire of the soul. Modern psychology calls it flow, coherence, or intrinsic motivation. It is the same principle that inner power is finite, and its direction determines destiny. To protect it is to protect the soul. To waste it is to erode the very foundation of who you are. And so, when the world tempts you with the serpent's glittering promises, when the shadow of desire reaches to claim your attention, remember this: power is not taken, it is surrendered. The erosion of the soul begins the moment you forget your own brilliance. But the restoration begins the moment you remember that the fire within you was never meant to be extinguished, it was meant to be mastered. If this video charged your internal battery, please show some love. Give this a quick like and subscribe to make sure you never miss an energy upgrade. I love seeing our global community grow, so please drop your location in the comments. Sit fuels the channel. If you've got questions that need an answer or want to connect with like-minded people, find us on Telegram, link below. Let's spread this power. Take a moment to share this with your crew. Have a truly powerful day.